The thing about a perfect life is that it only looks solid from a distance, like a skyline at dusk, all clean angles and golden light. Up close, there are elevator buttons that stick, paint chips on baseboards, and a husband who forgets where he left his glasses. But if you asked me last month, I would have told you, hand on heart, that my life was exactly what I wanted. I'm Eleanor. I consult for museums, private collectors, and houses that pretend to be museums. My days are a carousel of provenance reports, contract clauses, and the choreography of lighting that makes a painting breathe. Our home sits 32 floors above a strip of Manhattan that never sleeps. It is a glass and stone penthouse that photographs beautifully, even when I don't. We have a terrace big enough for herbs and a stubborn lemon tree that refuses to die. There's a piano I barely touch, and a library that I do. Richard, my husband, is an architect who works from home, a romantic way of saying he lives inside his models and sometimes comes out for dinner. He is kind in a way that lands softly. He warms my side of the bed in winter. He keeps my favorite tea stocked. He texts me photos of sunsets like they are handmade just for us. He is also a little vain. He would never pass a mirror he didn't nod at, the way men salute a familiar doorman. I found it charming, the way a small imperfection makes a piece feel human. 2 weeks in Europe, Paris, Milan, Madrid, landed on my calendar like a neat sequence of dominoes. A collector in the 7th wanted an acquisition strategy. A gallery in Brera needed me to referee a custody dispute over a sculpture that looked like a question mark. The Madrid stop was for a foundation's gala, all velvet programs and donors who whisper with their mouths very close to your ear. It was the sort of itinerary that used to thrill me and still does, even if I pretend otherwise. 2 weeks away meant logistics, plants, deliveries, the lemon tree that drinks like a sailor. Packages Richard signs for and forgets to tell me about. He's brilliant at cantilevers, less brilliant at remembering milk. I needed help. Someone temporary to keep the home humming while I hopped planes and kissed cheeks in 3 time zones. I put out a feeler through a boutique agency. They promised competence, discretion, and excellent references. Manhattan is full of people with excellent references. Still, I wanted someone who understood that our home is a working space. My study, his studio, the grid of our days laid over a city that never agrees to be quiet. She arrived on a Wednesday afternoon as if the elevator had learned manners. Chloe, mid-20s, fresh-pressed uniform, hair smoothed back in a way that said she knew how to disappear in a room and still see everything. No perfume, just that clean laundry note expensive detergents have. She shook my hand with a quick, firm grip and looked me straight in the eye. No skittering, no flinch. I liked that. We toured the apartment. The pantry is organized by cuisine and frequency. The espresso machine bites if you press the double shot button twice. The vacuum head gets stuck under the low credenza near the window. I showed her the plant schedule on the fridge, a calendar with water droplets drawn on certain days, because the lemon tree understands doodles better than Richard does. She took in everything without interrupting, only asking precise questions. Do you prefer vinegar or alcohol-based cleaner on the marble? Are deliveries placed inside or kept with concierge? Is the piano cover closed at night? I answered. Vinegar. Inside. Always. She moved like a person who has studied other people's chaos for a living. In the kitchen, she glanced once at my knife block and turned the handles to one uniform angle without thinking. In the laundry closet, she found a missing button from a sweater I'd stopped missing. She folded a towel in thirds with an economy that made me feel extravagant. I believe my job, she said, voice low, professional, is to vanish the little frictions so you can do what you do best. It was a good line, maybe rehearsed, but I was not in the mood to be suspicious. I was in the mood to be grateful. Richard popped out of his studio, pencil behind his ear like a prop in a play he's been performing since grad school. "Welcome," he said, warm and easy. He can be charming without effort, especially without effort. "Our schedule is a little chaotic. Eleanor keeps order." I smiled because it was mostly true. Chloe nodded as if taking note of a structural load-bearing truth about our house. We set terms. 2 weeks, weekday hours with flexibility, weekend check-ins for plants and packages. Boundaries. My office is off-limits unless I ask. The library is sacred ground, and if the lemon tree looks like it's plotting a coup, text me. She accepted cleanly. The agency's paperwork flowed through like a well-designed app. IDs, references, signatures, a background check that returned with a soft chime I didn't bother to interpret. "You'll find me reliable," Chloe said. "I prefer lists. Lists make everything honest." I laughed, because lists are my native language. We did a first test run. She wiped down the kitchen, then labeled the spice jars whose handwriting had drifted into hieroglyphics. She decanted oats into a glass canister because, she said, the original packaging is a chaos of air. She set a small caddy under the sink. Gloves, cloths, a spray bottle she mixed herself, neat as a surgeon's tray. She did not chatter. She did not linger. When I offered coffee, she said, "Thank you, but I'll keep my hands empty." I noticed the respect embedded in that. Nothing extra to spill, nothing extra to break. At 5, she placed a printed sheet on the counter. "Tomorrow's plan." It read at the top in a narrow font. Times, tasks, notes, a margin for questions. There were 2 bullet points under kitchen. Sanitize handles, inventory staples. Under studio, dust only the shelf with models, leave desk untouched. Under library, vacuum edges, no rearranging. She had listened. She had translated. She had turned my muttered preferences into a map. That night, while Richard plated salmon in the casual, too much dill way he does, we debriefed. "She's good," I said. "Better than good." He nodded, mouth full, and gave me a thumbs up like a child who'd just tried a new vegetable. We laughed. I remember this clearly because it felt like the exhale before a plane takes off, a tiny surrender to trust. The suitcase came out, the black one with wheels that sound expensive on tile. I packed with the ritual that soothes me. Garments rolled, silk zipped, chargers coiled, documents in the leather folio my mentor gave me when I closed my first major deal. On the desk, I left a 1-page household guide, contacts, emergency instructions, delivery preferences, and a polite note to the super about the temperamental elevator, just in case. I texted Chloe the airport pickup times, the window for the dog walker in the apartment below who insists on chatting, the number for our concierge who knows everyone's secrets and no one's prices. Morning arrived in sheets of February light. The city below was a moving field of cabs and ambition. I wore the coat that makes me feel like I'm in charge of things even when I'm not. The one with the sharp collar and the deep pocket for my passport. Richard held my second bag and kissed my forehead, the old-fashioned kind of kiss that feels like a benediction. "We'll be fine," he said, easy as air. "Go make the art world behave." I laughed, because making the art world behave is like making the ocean hold still. Chloe arrived 5 minutes early. She does not arrive. She materializes in the manner of people who were taught to be on time before they were taught to speak. "Good morning, Mrs. Hart," she said. I told her to call me Eleanor. She nodded, filed it away, and took my house keys with both hands the way you accept a ceremonial object. "You'll have updates each evening," she said. "If anything requires a decision, I'll send options, not problems." I liked the sentence so much I considered writing it on a sticky note and living by it. I gave her a last walkthrough. The code for the alarm, The quirk with the sliding door. The drawer where we keep warranties for things that shouldn't break, but sometimes do. She checked each item off her printed list with a slim black pen. We stood together for a beat in the threshold of the study. "This room is your brain," she said, softer. "I will treat it as such." I smiled. "I didn't know then how quickly your brain can be invaded without a single object moved an inch." The car was waiting downstairs. Heater already audibly apologizing for winter. I kissed Richard properly this time. Longer, warmer, that quiet exchange that says we are fine. His hands were cold from holding my bag. "Text me when you land," he said. "Text me even if you forget. I'll text you anyway." It was our joke. Redundancy as romance. I waved at Chloe, who stood a polite step back, hands folded, expression neutral in the way of people trained to erase themselves from family pictures. In the elevator, I caught our reflection for a moment. Me with my coat, the carry-on, the practiced calm. The door already sliding shut on the world I had arranged precisely to keep running while I was gone. The doors met. The car hummed. By the time we hit the lobby, I had already shifted into my other life. Flight times, client notes, the rhythm of leaving and returning that we had made a marriage around. Outside, the driver opened the trunk, and the morning smelled like coffee and cold metal. I climbed in, checked my passport pocket without looking, and texted Richard a single heart. He sent back a photo of the lemon tree, 2 stubborn new buds I hadn't noticed. "We're thriving," he wrote. Chloe replied in the group thread with a neat professional update. "All set. Have a safe flight. I'll keep everything in order." I believed her. I believed both of them. And that, as it turns out, is how perfect lives invite their snakes, by mistaking competence for loyalty and neat handwriting for truth. The first week on the road always feels like a costume change. In Paris, I am brisk and certain. In Milan, I am patient with chaos because the espresso is perfect. And in Madrid, I am softer, as if light through a museum skylight could reach the part of me that worries for sport. Every night, the itinerary made space for Richard. 10 minutes of video, a kiss against glass, the ordinary assurance that the person you love is exactly where you left him. The first night, he answered on the second ring, eyes bright, hair doing that architect wave it does when he's been sketching. "You'll never guess," he said before hello. "Chloe made these short ribs that should be illegal. The house smells like Sunday." He laughed, boyish. "You'd love them. You should ask her for the recipe." It was harmless, the way compliments should be. I told him about a collector who tried to pay for dinner with a painting on approval, which is not how bills work even in Paris. He told me the lemon tree had 2 new buds and that Chloe had labeled the freezer like a chemist. We hung up on a shared smile, the kind you can feel more than see through a screen. Night 2, he forgot. Not a crime. I sent a photo of the Seine pretending to be shy under a low bridge. He texted back at 2 a.m. My time. Fell asleep on the couch. Long day. Tomorrow for sure. Night 3, he picked up but wandered. His camera faced the ceiling half the time. "Sorry, babe," he said, distracted. "The way you talk from the doorway of a room you're not entering." Chloe reorganized the pantry. It's like NASA in there. I can actually find things. I asked what he'd eaten. He said, "She did something with citrus. You know how you always overthink zest? She doesn't." He meant it as a joke. It landed like a pinprick. I am not jealous of competence. My work worships at its altar. But there is a pitch to praise that sets your teeth on edge when it's off by a half note. I told myself I was tired, that screens make everyone seem farther away, that men say silly things when they are pleased and not thinking. In Milan, a curator argued with me about whether a loan agreement should specify humidity in language or in numbers. I said numbers. She said poetry. I smiled at my reflection in the restroom mirror and thought, you are arguing about humidity because your life is stable enough to care. I liked that thought so much I decided to believe it. The agency forwarded an update from Chloe each evening. The format never varied. 3 bullet points for the household, 1 note for plants, 1 for packages. Handled dry cleaning pickup. Pantry inventory complete. Attached. Replaced vacuum filter. Lemon tree watered as scheduled. Buds remain. Signed for 2 parcels. Photos attached. The kind of report that says, nothing is on fire, go to sleep. The 4th night should have been easy. Madrid was velvet and donors and a speech I could give on autopilot. I returned to the hotel with my shoes in my hand and the small, righteous ache that means you did your job and smiled at the right people. My phone buzzed once, then again. 2 alerts stacked like dominoes. The first was an airline update delaying a flight I wasn't on yet. The second was the credit card app. Cheerful as a maitre d', who knows your name. Transaction approved. Madison Avenue Jeweler, 417012. I stared at the number the way you stare at a painting that is almost, but not quite, the original. We do not have an anniversary in February. My birthday lives in June with humid air and the smell of linden trees. We do not buy gifts that cost as much as a semester of someone's college on a Thursday without discussion. I waited for the follow-up text that would make it charming instead of strange. Hey, surprise. I found the necklace you almost bought in Florence. Nothing came. I called. Voicemail. Leave a message, his recorded voice said. Warm, careless, familiar in the way you don't notice until you need it to answer. I didn't leave one. I am old-fashioned about certain things, and one of them is that I do not audition my worry for an empty line. 20 minutes later, a message arrived. In the zone with models. Sorry. You'll love what I'm building. I typed. Deleted. Typed again. Jeweler? I sent only the one word, like a scientist labeling a slide. 3 dots appeared, then vanished, then returned. Oh. Long story. I'll tell you tomorrow. Promise. I put the phone down. I picked it up. I opened Chloe's nightly update. Kitchen deep clean, complete. Stair treads wiped. Made citrus vinaigrette for Mr. Hart's lunch tomorrow. Ingredients listed. The word citrus blinked at me like a private joke I wasn't in on. The next evening, he answered with a grin and a new shirt. You look sharp, I said, and he turned sideways like a model making fun of a model. Chloe steamed it, he said. She's a lifesaver. I asked about the jeweler. He looked away, just for a second, the way men do when they are counting. Gift for a client, he said too quickly. A thank you for a referral. It's tax deductible. Architects are many things. Jewelers are not usually in their chart of accounts. Which client? I asked mildly, as if I were asking which wine we served last Christmas. He shuffled his smile. You don't know him, he said. Old friend. We go way back. Richard has many friends. I know the shape of most of them. This one had the outline of a guess. That night, the city outside my window could have been any city. I lay in a hotel bed that had never been slept in by anyone I loved and stared at a ceiling that didn't have our crack shaped like a map of Italy. Unease is not a scream. It is a thread you feel with your fingertips in the dark. You tug, and something somewhere begins to unravel. Morning in Madrid tasted like oranges and late apologies. He texted a photo of the lemon tree blossoms and a caption, See? Proof of life. I sent a heart out of habit and opened my calendar. I have always believed in contingency plans. Museums have generators. Collectors have vaults. I have miles and a platinum card and a spine that prefers action to speculation. At lunch, a donor asked whether authenticity is a binary or a spectrum. Both, I said, thinking of necklaces and explanations and the precise value of silence. After dessert, I excused myself, went up to my room, and opened the airline app. There is a sound a woman makes only in private when she moves chess pieces no one else can see. It is not a threat. It is a decision maturing. I changed my ticket. The new itinerary slid into my inbox with the clean, polite efficiency of systems built by people who never make eye contact. Arrival: New York, 2:05 p.m., 3 days earlier than planned. I did not text Richard. I did not email Chloe. I sent my assistant a single line to reshuffle one meeting and told the gala I had a family matter, which was true in the way that words sometimes are when you hold them up to the light at a certain angle. On the flight, I practiced the art of unbelief, which is not the same as suspicion. I watched a movie I didn't finish and underlined 3 sentences in a book about a painter who loved the wrong city. Somewhere over the Atlantic, I slept for 20 minutes and dreamed of the lemon tree flowering in snow. When the wheels touched down at JFK, my phone pulsed awake with a weather advisory and a sale at a brand I don't wear. Nothing from him. Nothing from her. I looked out at the gray runway, then at my reflection in the dark window. And I thought, let's see what competence looks like when it thinks no one is watching. New York at 2 in the afternoon is a paradox, frantic and half asleep. I was both when the cab let me out on our block. The doorman blinked at me like I'd stepped out of a magic trick. I smiled, lifted a finger for hush, no announcement, no calls upstairs, and crossed the lobby with the quiet that comes from long practice. The elevator ride to 32 felt longer than the flight. I watched the numbers climb and coached my face into neutral. Keys in my hand like a rosary, I opened the door to a home that sounded exactly wrong. The kind of wrong that wears silence like a costume. The kitchen was tidy in a way it never is midweek. 2 flutes on the counter. One beating, one smudged with lipstick that wasn't mine. A chilled bottle in the sink wearing a gown of ice. The faintest ribbon of perfume drifted through the air. My brand, but overused. A chorus where there should be a solo. I set my carry-on beside the island and followed the thread of a laugh I didn't recognize. It was coming from the bedroom hallway, light and pleased with itself. I could hear Richard's voice too. Lower, performative. The way he speaks to clients and birthday cakes. The bedroom door was ajar. I pressed my palm to it and let it swing open on its own. Chloe stood before my mirror in my red silk dress, the one that fits like a decision. She had not slipped it on for a moment. She had zipped it, arranged it, studied herself in it long enough to find the exact angle the fabric loves. Richard stood 3 steps behind her with a glass of champagne, his mouth parted in a smile he hadn't chosen carefully. He saw me first. "Eleanor!" he blurted, panic clipping his name for me into a shorter word. You're early." Chloe did not startle. She took me in, head to toe, then turned a fraction toward Richard as if to include him in the composition. "Mrs. Hart," she said warmly, as if greeting a guest to her own little gallery. "Mr. Hart was only helping me try the fit. It's such a beautiful piece. I wanted to understand your taste." I let my coat slip from my shoulders and laid it over the foot of the bed I make every morning with the corners neat enough to pass inspection. "My taste," I said mildly, "is for my clothes to live on my body or on their hangers. Not in between." I looked at Richard. "And for champagne to be a night thing." He swallowed hard, the glass wobbling in his hand. "It's not—" "Nothing happened," he said too quickly, words bumping into each other in their hurry to be harmless. "She asked. I thought it might be funny. A joke." He tried to laugh and made a new shape with his mouth instead. Chloe tilted her head, the universal gesture for don't be angry. "I should have asked you," she said. "I'm sorry, Eleanor." The apology was perfectly packaged and absolutely weightless. I stepped closer, not to her, but to the mirror. The dress sat too smoothly across her hips for a first try. The back vent had been pinned with a silver hairpin, mine, so the hem wouldn't flash when she turned. My jewelry tray on the vanity held a new vacancy where the red lipstick usually slept. Evidence lives in arrangements, not in confessions. Take it off, I said, calm enough to be mistaken for kind. Hang it on its padded hanger, in the garment bag, not the wire one. My voice to Chloe, my eyes on Richard. She didn't move immediately. Instead, she met my gaze in the mirror and let a very small smile touch the corner of her mouth. Not a grin. Not a flinch. Recognition. The smile people wear when the move they rehearsed has finally exited rehearsal. Of course, she said at last, and drifted into my closet like a red flag learning how to fold itself. Richard put his glass down and reached for my suitcase. Absurdly domestic. Do you want tea? He stammered. I held up a hand. What I want, I said, is to understand why a jeweler on Madison has our card on file. His eyes flicked toward the dresser where he'd left his phone. Client, he repeated weakly, as if repetition could make a truth breed. The closet light clicked off. Chloe returned in her uniform, dress draped over her arms with the reverence reserved for relics. She waited in the doorway, composed, as if we were all actors in a scene she had blocked in her head a dozen times. Shall I make you something to eat? She asked, sweet as a lacquered fruit. You must be tired from the flight. No, I said. You can take the afternoon off. I let the next part hang in the air like a chandelier waiting to fall. We'll discuss boundaries in the morning. Richard exhaled, relieved to have instructions. Any instructions. Chloe dipped her head and moved past me, close enough for me to smell my own perfume on her skin. She didn't apologize again. She didn't need to. Apologies are for accidents. When the elevator doors sighed shut on her, the apartment regained its true proportions. I walked back to the bedroom and touched the vanity tray. A faint smear of lipstick grazed the crystal edge. On the dresser, the champagne left a wet ring like a careless signature. I looked at my husband, the man I love, the man who had allowed a stranger to rehearse ownership in my red silk dress, and felt the precise moment when shock cooled into information. This wasn't a fling. Flings are messy, breathless, ill-timed. This was tidy. This had props and marks and a director who understood daylight and mirrors and where to place a glass to catch attention at exactly 2 p.m. This was a plan. I sat on the edge of the bed and folded my hands in my lap, the way you do before a concert begins. Richard, I said quietly, and the quiet did more work than volume ever could. Tell me everything you think is safe to tell me. He opened his mouth and closed it again. He had very little to offer. That was fine. Chloe had already told me what I needed to know without saying a word. I didn't raise my voice. I raised the floor under the room. Chloe, I said, steady. Out of my bedroom. She held my red silk a second too long, then glided past me with the dress folded like a flag. The hallway swallowed her footsteps. I waited until I heard the soft click of the living room door. Only then did I look at Richard. Nothing happened, he blurted, too fast, already defensive. It was a misread. She was curious about the fabric. I was just being polite. You're exhausted from flying. This looks worse than what it is, I offered. He seized the lifeline. Exactly. You know how you get after travel. Everything's heightened. I should have called you first. I didn't think. I didn't want to wake you. Richard, I said softly, and the softness stopped him. Stop trying to arrange my perception. He blinked, regrouped. I'm being honest. You always accuse me of leaving you out of decisions. This time I was being transparent. I told you about the pantry. I told you about dinner. I told you about the jeweler? I asked. A beat. Client gift, he repeated, thin as tissue. I should have told you sooner. You're making this into what? I let him look for a word big enough to hide behind. He didn't find one. He tried a gentler tactic. Ellie, you're reading malice into logistics. Chloe's been helpful. The house is finally under control. You always say you want support. And now when I actually... Support looks like boundaries kept, I said. Not crossed and explained away. I kept my coat off, my posture loose, my voice even. The kind of calm that makes people check the exits without meaning to. He reached for my hand, then thought better of it. I'm sorry, he said, small. I messed up. I swear it won't happen again. I'll set rules. Good, I said. Here's the first rule. I opened the door to the living room. Chloe stood near the window, hands folded, face composed in professional neutrality. She looked precisely like a person who had not heard anything and would not offer anything unless asked. Chloe, I said, thank you. You can leave the house for today. A fractional pause, calculation behind her eyes. Of course, she said. Would you like me to prep anything before I go? Dinner? The plants? No, I said. We'll review expectations in the morning. I let the sentence be as plain as a signed receipt. She inclined her head. Understood. She moved efficiently, placed the house keys on the console tray, smoothed her uniform, took her coat. As she passed, the air carried my perfume back to me like a taunt. She did not look at Richard. She did not need to. The door closed. The apartment exhaled. Richard watched me, hunting for cues. Thank you, he said, as if I had rescued him from a minor embarrassment. He tried a smile that belonged to easier years. You know I love you. You know that, right? I know what love looks like in evidence, I said. Tonight it will look like you sleeping in the guest room and not texting the help after hours. He flushed. That's harsh. It's simple, I said. Simplicity helps. Tomorrow we set formal boundaries. For now, I'm showering and going to bed. I stepped aside so he could pass. He didn't. He wanted absolution wrapped in exhaustion and the word overreaction to do its old, familiar work. I gave him something else. I believe you didn't touch her, I said, letting the sentence sit like a glass on a perfectly level table. And I believe you let her touch everything else that matters. Those can both be true. He looked away. Okay, he murmured. I closed the bedroom door and turned the lock, a courtesy to myself. In the quiet, I made a note the way I would in a client file. When people tell you who they are with arrangements, believe the arrangement. Tomorrow, I would stop accepting explanations and start collecting proof. Morning came clean and bright, the kind of light that makes even dust look innocent. I made coffee, set 2 cups on the counter out of habit, and then poured only 1. When Chloe arrived, 5 minutes early, like a clock flattering itself, I met her in the hallway outside my bedroom. Chloe, I said even. You're terminated. Pack your things and leave the apartment within 10 minutes. She blinked once, quickly. Of course, she said, as if I had changed a meeting time. May I ask the reason, Mrs. Hart? Boundary violations, I said. That will suffice. A small, well-bred pause. Understood. She moved with professional economy, coat from the hook, tote from the chair, phone into pocket. Would you like me to finish the pantry inventory before I go? No, I said. Leave your keys on the console. Security will deactivate your code by end of day. She placed the keys in the tray, centered them with 2 fingers, and gave me a look that meant, you will miss me. She was wrong about many things, but not about that one. Competence has a gravity. She glanced toward the kitchen as if checking a final box, then slipped out the door without another word. Silence returned, the kind that belongs to the walls. I stood for a moment and listened to my own house breathe. Then a quiet chime lifted from the kitchen, one of those bland, cheerful alerts designed by people who think information is always good news. The tablet on the counter was awake, a cloud icon pulsing a soft badge in the corner. Her name sat at the top of the screen, logged in and confident, Chloe A. Sync complete. I touched the screen with the same care I use on varnished canvases. Her folders were tidy, audaciously tidy. House, recipes, personal, proof. That last one did not blush. I opened it. The thumbnails loaded in a patient grid. The first was a mirror photo. My bedroom. My mirror. My red lipstick on her mouth. She had titled it, Fit Test 1 JPG, as if this were lab work. The timestamp put it 3 days ago at 2:07 p.m. Another image, my office chair with her legs tucked underneath. Bare feet on my rug, the camera angled to catch the light on my desk. Office, cache, study.jpg. My stomach went cold and then level. I opened a set labeled wardrobe. There she was in my black sheath, in the camel coat Richard bought me the year we learned the city's winters, in the silk robe I wear on nights when the world has been unkind and I need proof it cannot stain me. In some, she is alone. In others, a slice of Richard appears at the edge, his hand, his shoulder, the negative space of his presence. Each image a rehearsal, each rehearsal a claim. Another folder, recordings, file names like kitchen argument, clip1.m4a, Sunday discussion.m4a. I pressed play on the first. My voice filled the small room, not angry, not even raised, but firm the way a person sounds when they are guarding their time. Richard, I can't reschedule Madrid for your friend's tasting, I heard myself say. His reply came muffled, halfway between a pout and a plea. You always choose work. The clip cut there, precise, like a quote pulled for a headline. I listened to 3 more, our ordinary frictions, trimmed of context, polished into exhibits. In one, I say, I need quiet this afternoon. In the edit, it sounds like disdain. In another, he mutters, You're never here. And the file ends before my apology. She had harvested our living for narrative, then pared it until it fit her story of the cruel wife and the neglected husband. I felt something settle in me, not rage, not grief, strategy. I backed out and opened a document titled Statement Draft. It was bullet point neat, chilling in its calm. Employer, Eleanor Hart, exhibits controlling behavior. See audio. Pattern of verbal hostility. Compile strongest 30-45 secchi clips. Husband, Richard Hart, corroborates stress in household. Coach phrasing. Incident. Staircase fall, shock, bruising, escalating aggression. Request. Restraining order. Pending civil claim. Secure temporary occupancy. She had annotated her own lies with the rigor of a grant application. On the next page, a checklist. Meet Addie C. Re. Occupancy leverage. Done. Obtain medical note for contusions. Urgent care. Telemed. Stare audio cue. Don't push me. Practice cadence. Jewelry narrative. Gift misplaced by Mrs. H. Accused me of theft. Timeline. Saturday, 6:15 p.m. Richard home. Upstairs, neighbors out. The jewelry. The Madison Avenue charge. She was building a frame and had already hung the necklace on it. At the top of the folder pane was one more item, a draft email frozen in the amber of indecision. 2. L. With a subject line that read, Almost there. I opened it. Ke Hoach Gan Song Roy, she had written, then switched to English, like someone auditioning fluency. It's perfect. The wife is traveling again soon. He's soft. He wants to be seen. I have weeks of audio. I bumped into my lawyer at the cafe, and he already explained how these things go. Emotional abuse leaves no marks, but it leaves patterns. Courts, love patterns. Saturday, I'll take the fall at the stairs. I'll start the voice memo and make her jealous first. Bring up the necklace. She'll bite. If she touches me, we're done. If she doesn't, the audio will sell the rest. I'll tell them she pushed. We open with a restraining order and end with a settlement. The penthouse is worth the bruises. I read it twice, then a third time for the cadence of her certainty. It was all there. The script, the beats, the stage directions. She wasn't seducing my husband. She was colonizing our life for a payout. I took screenshots of every folder, every file list, every timestamp. I airdropped the images to my phone and then to a drive that did not live in this house. I forwarded the draft to myself and to my attorney with a subject line that said only, "Potential litigation, preserve." I did not edit, did not correct, did not gloat. Evidence should never look excited. In photos favorites, I found one last album. The cover image was my staircase from the landing above, the camera aimed downward to capture the last 3 steps. In the next photo, she lay at the bottom, carefully arranged, her hand just touching the first riser, her expression composed into fear. The metadata said, "Test lighting." That was the moment I understood what kind of opponent I had. A woman who makes practice versions of accidents. I closed the tablet and stared at the window until my reflection resolved. I have spent my professional life proving authenticity, seeing what's real beneath what's convenient. Now the skill had come home to roost. She wanted a story where I was the villain and she was the wounded ingenue. She had props, marks, cues. Good. So did I. I wiped my fingerprints from the tablet's glass out of habit and returned it to its stand. Then I sat at the kitchen table with a pen and a legal pad and wrote 3 short lines. 1. The house will tell the truth. 2. People believe what they can see. 3. Give her room to perform. I circled the 3rd line. I poured my coffee into the sink and brewed a fresh pot. When the new cup was ready, I opened my calendar and began to rearrange the week with the careful, clinical joy of a strategist who has finally been handed the other side's playbook. I closed the last screenshot, powered the tablet to sleep, and sat very still until my pulse slowed into something useful. There is a difference between being wronged and being ready. I had crossed it. Chloe didn't want my husband. She wanted my house, my name on a deed, my narrative in the mouths of neighbors who think they are neutral. She wanted the life I built and the legal leverage to make me apologize for defending it. Everything was the prize. That sort of appetite doesn't stop at a dress. I'd written 3 lines on the legal pad. I underlined the 3rd again. Give her room to perform. I picked up my phone and scrolled to her contact. My reflection in the black screen looked calm, almost bored. Good. Predators mistake composure for weakness when they're in a hurry. She answered on the first ring. Mrs. Hart. Chloe, I said, measured. About this morning, I've reconsidered. A pause. Calculation hummed down the line like a refrigerator motor. Yes? You may stay through the end of the week, I said. Temporarily. We'll treat today as a reset, but you'll move to the guest room. Effective immediately. The quiet stretched half a beat too long, then her voice softened into gratitude she could pour on anything. Thank you, Eleanor. That's very generous. It's practical, I said. I have travel obligations to rearrange and a household that runs better with help. We'll formalize boundaries tonight. Keys remain with you. Your code stays active. I expect daily written updates by 6. Concise, as before. Of course, she said. I'll return at 4 to settle the guest room and prepare dinner. 4 is fine. I ended the call before she could add anything sweet enough to stick. In the hallway, Richard hovered like a man outside a confessional, unsure which door leads back to the nave. "You're keeping her?" he asked carefully, gratitude already blinking in the background like a hazard light. "I thought, after last night." "Through the week," I said. "Guest room, supervised, clear rules." "Then she's gone." "You're sure?" He wanted reconciliation to be a feeling. I offered him a plan. "I'm sure of the schedule," I said. "That will do." I looked at him the way you look at a building you love that needs retrofitting. "Tonight, we write the rules down. Kitchen hours, closed rooms, no personal calls during work, no alcohol service, and you," I held his gaze, "do not discuss our marriage with the staff." He nodded, chastened, relieved. He mistook the shape of my mercy. Let him. After he retreated to his studio, I pulled a fresh page from the pad and made a list that did not look like a list if anyone glanced at it. Flowers for the foyer, a call to the concierge about guest parking policy, a note to myself about replacing the burnt bulb above the staircase landing. Harmless errands if read aloud, placement work if you know what you're building. I walked the apartment with new eyes and the old precision I get paid for. Sightlines, angles, the distance between the last 3 steps and the place the rug wants to buckle. The span from the top landing to the art niche where our camera-friendly life pretends to live. People believe what they see. I would show them. At 4 on the dot, Chloe arrived with a small suitcase and a smile you could frame. "Guest room?" she asked, respectful. I led her down the hall and watched the way she scanned thresholds, measuring. She set her bag on the bench like she had practiced it and opened the closet as if it already knew her name. "House expectations," I said, handing her a single typed page. I had written it between lists. No entry to the primary bedroom and study without request, no personal devices on the kitchen counter, no recordings of any kind inside the home. The last line I read aloud. "That includes voice memos, Chloe. My house is not a witness stand." She didn't flinch. Understood. Her pupil flick narrowed, hardly there. "You'll have my evening update at 6. "Good," I said. "One more thing. No more steaming our clothes. Laundry and dry cleaning go through the usual services. You have enough to do." "As you wish." She made a note on her phone, careful to angle the screen away. Polite, practiced, already editing her week to the scene she planned to stage. In the kitchen, she started on dinner with her efficient quiet. I let her cook. I texted my attorney a single sentence about availability on Saturday evening and added a calendar block whose title would make sense to anyone who didn't know me. Then I set the guest room doorstop a little wider and adjusted the hallway lamp to a warmer bulb. Nothing dramatic. Just light where truth would eventually want it. Richard appeared when the food was plated, eager for normal. "Smells amazing," he said to no one in particular. Chloe smiled the way a service professional smiles at a household still pretending it is a family. I ate, complimented the seasoning, and left my plate half-finished. I wanted her to see satisfaction and think it meant surrender. After dinner, I gathered the plates myself and let her wipe the counter. "We'll review tomorrow's plan at 9, I said. "Lights out in common areas by 10. She nodded, agreeable, and drifted toward the guest room like mist through a beam of light. In our bedroom, I stood at the window and watched the city spend itself on the hour. Somewhere below us, other people believed the stories they were told about other people's marriages. I pressed my palm to the glass until the cold steadied me. There is a moment in every restoration where you stop documenting damage and start choosing what survives. I had reached it. I turned off the lamp, left the door ajar to the hall's newly generous glow, and lay down with the certainty of a woman who has stopped asking why and started arranging how. The hunt had begun, and I would be the one writing the tags on the evidence when it ended. Strategy tastes like metal until you swallow it. Then it's just resolve. By noon, I had a list, a delivery, and a reason to be elsewhere while the building forgot to notice me. The package was small, legal, and boring if anyone cared. Maintenance cameras, battery-powered, local storage. I signed at the front desk and took the service elevator up, the one that hums behind the life of the building like a metronome nobody hears. I installed the first lens above the staircase landing, nested in the crown molding where late afternoon light skims the wall. A second went in the hallway sconce facing down toward the last 3 steps. A third perched in the living room bookshelf, spine high with the art monographs, covering the arc from the kitchen to the foyer. Another took the kitchen's far corner, wide enough to see where hands hover and where they land. Angles, distances, sightlines. The work I do for paintings, now for people. I tested each frame with a simple choreographed walk. Down the hall, pause at the landing, turn, descend the last steps, cross the living room, set a glass at the counter. On playback, the picture held. Clean, color true, time stamped, no audio. I don't need voices. I need sight. People believe what they see. At 4, Chloe arrived with the politeness of a belle. I met her at the door with the same calm that had become my uniform. "Guest room is ready," I said. "Dinner at 7 works. We'll review tomorrow's tasks at 9. She nodded, practiced gratitude smoothing every edge. I began the first rehearsal of our war. In the kitchen, while she whisked something bright in a metal bowl, I reached for the wine and tipped the bottle just enough that the neck kissed the stemware. My elbow brushed her sleeve, an accident so plausible it could teach a class in accidents. Crimson arced onto her uniform, a small disaster blooming across white. "Oh, Chloe, I'm sorry," I said at once, because I was. "Let me—" I grabbed a towel, dabbing, apologizing twice, not 3 times. Her face arranged itself into competence. "It's fine, Mrs. Hart." She stepped to the sink, ran cold water, treated the stain like she'd done it 100 times. In the bookshelf's quiet spine, a green light winked and kept watching. She excused herself to change. In the corridor lens, she paused at the hall mirror, angled her chin, checked a mark near the inside of her arm where the wine hadn't touched. She pressed a fingernail there, just once, testing the skin's willingness to bruise. The camera saw the question. It did not have to hear the answer. That night, I practiced the second move, a cool front over warm water. Richard brought plates to the table with the proud clatter of a boy who has helped. "Smells amazing," he said, brightly to me. "Chloe's a miracle," he added carelessly to no one. I ate and made no theater of pleasure. When he brushed my shoulder in the kitchen, I let the touch slide away. "I'm tired," I said, honest. "Don't, please." The words found their marks. His face closed one door and opened another. People go where doors are open. Later, in the living room's long frame, the camera watched him linger at the counter while Chloe packed leftovers, grateful to be useful. He told her a story about a cantilever problem as if it were funny. She laughed exactly enough. He said something I could read in his jawline, in the way his shoulders rounded, in the small, ridiculous swagger of a man who wants to be seen. She looked up at him with eyes that know the price of attention. The lens does not blink. I did not intervene. Mercy and indulgence are different animals. I was feeding neither. Day 2, I adjusted the landing lamp to a warmer bulb, the kind that softens everything but also makes single colors, blood, wine, bruises, declare themselves. I moved the rug a finger's width, then smoothed it flat again. I am not a monster, and I am not careless. I placed a small dish on the console where anyone would set down keys or jewelry, a neutral stage for future props. In the afternoon, I found Chloe in the guest bath, sleeves rolled to the elbow, scrubbing with purpose. She glanced up. Quick smile. Almost done. I nodded and left. 2 minutes later, in the sconce's frame, she reappeared alone in the hallway. She stopped, looked left, looked right, then slipped her phone from her pocket. The front camera faced her. She angled her forearm into view. With her other hand, she pinched and dragged at the delicate skin near the wrist, then raked 2 short lines with a thumbnail. Not deep. Deliberate. She winced, not from pain but from calculation, and filmed the aftermath for half a beat. Then she shook out her hands, smoothed her hair, and went back to being who she is at work. I watched the clip in silence. There was an odd, almost admiring ache in my chest, the way you sometimes respect a thief's technique in a museum film. Then I archived it, copied it, and placed it somewhere she would never think to look. The house, meanwhile, learned its choreography. I became courteous and distant. Richard became needful and charming. Chloe became a reflective surface for him to admire himself in. After dinner, I let my phone keep me company. When he came to bed, I rolled away and pretended to sleep like a person who doesn't know that pretending is the most honest thing she has done all day. On Friday, I set the table with 3 plates and then removed one, a small inconvenience staged for effect. "We'll dine earlier," I told Chloe. "I have an early call." At 6 sharp, I excused myself from the kitchen to check emails, leaving a pan to rest and a man to hover. The bookshelf camera watched Richard hover. Hovering ripens into leaning if it is left unattended. He asked Chloe how her day had been. She said, "Productive," in a tone that makes men feel chosen. He said something about how the house felt better lately, lighter, like being in a good museum. She laughed at the metaphor because it was built for her. He took a step closer to show her a photo on his phone he did not need to show her. She leaned to see. There is a physics to this. Angle, proximity, the slight tilt of 2 heads to one frame. His hand touched her elbow as if the elbow were part of a story about architecture. Her mouth was very close to his and then not, and then briefly, yes. The camera saw the kiss as perfectly as if a director had called action. Not eager, not awkward, compliant. It was less romance than an exchange of currency. He stepped back quickly, face torn between guilt and vanity. She lowered her eyes in the performance of a woman who has been kissed and will allow you to think you did the kissing. In the kitchen corner, the lens kept writing its quiet diary. I did not cry. I brewed tea. When I returned, they were 2 professionals plating food, and if the room had a temperature, it was a polite, neutral 72. We ate. I asked Chloe if the lemon tree needed turning. She said she had rotated it gently to favor the weaker side. "Good," I said. I hate lopsided growth. After dinner, I carried my cup to the staircase and stood at the top landing, measuring the frame with my body the way dancers mark the stage. From here, a phone angled upward would catch my silhouette. A phone angled downward would catch a fall. I imagined a Saturday with neighbors out and the hour unambiguous. I imagined the sentence she had planned. "Don't push me." I imagined my face in that script. How it would be described, not how it would look. Then I stepped down 3 stairs, turned, and met my own eyes in the hallway mirror. In the reflection, I looked like a woman anyone might underestimate if they liked their stories simple. I touched the banister with my fingertips and felt the varnish catch just slightly where years had taught it to be smooth. The house was ready. I was done being the thing that happened to me. At 9, I reviewed the next day's calendar out loud in the kitchen to no one in particular. "Groceries at 5, quiet evening," I said, the way you say weather. Chloe nodded, took her cue, and typed her nightly update in that neat, narrow font. Richard kissed my temple and said he'd be in his studio for an hour. I said, "Take your time." He heard permission. I heard the hallway clock tick us closer to 6:15 tomorrow. In the guest room frame after lights out, the camera watched Chloe at the desk with her phone lit low. She opened the voice memo app and whispered. I couldn't read the words, but I could read the shape of them. Don't push me. She practiced the rise and the fall of a woman about to be wronged. She touched the inside of her arm where the bruise would flower prettier by morning. She smiled once, faintly, as if she could see herself on a witness stand and liked the angle. I closed the laptop on the live feeds and turned off the bedside lamp. Tomorrow the house would speak. It would not shout. It would show. And when showing was done, there would be nothing left for anyone to explain. Saturday, 6:15 p.m. The house felt staged in the way good galleries do. Clean lines, clear sightlines, nothing accidental. I stood at the top landing, one hand on the banister, the other empty. Chloe hovered at the base of the stairs, carefully in frame, phone in her palm at an angle that would catch both of us. She began first, as planned. Mrs. Hart, please. She called up, voice pitched for drama, not help. The screen of her phone lit. The red bar of a voice memo slid forward. I don't want any trouble. What did I do wrong? Her eyes flicked to the lens and back to me, measuring. I gave her the line she wanted, loud enough for the kitchen and the cameras. Chloe, you touched what isn't yours. You've been taking things that don't belong to you. I let the next sentence land like a gavel. The necklace Richard bought. Is it for you? She smiled, too quick to hide, and then arranged her face into fear. No, I would never. Please don't come closer, she cried, stepping backward until her heel felt for the third from last stair. The phone tilted to frame me high and her low. She was building perspective like a set designer. You lied, I said evenly. You lied to me in my house. I did not move. Above me, the landing camera held my stillness like evidence. To my left, the sconce camera saw her hand hover to her forearm where a bruise would photograph well. She raised her voice, practiced cadence. Don't push me, she shouted. To the mic, not to me. Then she threw herself forward into the fall she had already rehearsed. A twist, a grab that missed the rail by design, the collapse onto the last 3 steps and then the floor. She landed carefully, shoulder first, then hip, her phone angled to catch a slice of me and a plate of stairs. Ah! She wailed, breathy, almost elegant. It hurts! Richard! The name was bait tossed toward the kitchen. He came running, eyes wide, hands out. Chloe, Eleanor, what happened? He looked from her to me, searching for a story his conscience could live with. Chloe clutched her arm and let a tear sit where a camera could see it. She pushed me, she sobbed, voice wobbling just enough to feel expensive. She's jealous. She thinks you love me. I was trying to leave and she... No one pushed you, I said, calm as marble. Don't move her, I added to Richard, unless you want to make a minor bruise major. My voice carried down the stairwell, clear, level, recorded by nothing I owned and everything I had installed. He wavered, the way a building wavers before it remembers its load. Eleanor, you didn't... It wasn't a question. It was a man trying to reconcile love with theater. I didn't, I said. I kept my hand on the banister, my feet planted, the top of the stairs a clean geometry of innocence. And if truth still means anything in this home, we're about to prove it. Chloe's eyes flashed, a quick flicker of calculation, then more tears. Please, she whispered toward her phone, as if appealing to a jury she had already chosen. Don't let her near me. I took one step down, only one, and stopped. Richard, I said, not raising my voice, not needing to. Help her to the sofa, gently, then meet me in the living room. I glanced at the wall where the staircase meets the hall, where paint covers wiring and wiring feeds sight. We're done with accusations. It's time for facts. I came down the stairs one step at a time, calm enough to make the room check itself. Chloe lay arranged on the floor like a sketch of tragedy. Richard hovered, ready to believe whatever hurt the least. I looked at him first. "You love her?" I asked, level. He opened his mouth, closed it, nodded. An apology, a reflex, a failure to choose. "Good," I said. "Then you'll want to see everything." I crossed the living room and picked up the remote. The smart TV woke to a neutral blue, then split into a 4-panel grid. I didn't add commentary. I didn't need to. Top left, the hallway sconce camera. Chloe alone yesterday, lifting her forearm into the frame, pressing a thumbnail until the skin flushed, dragging 2 tidy scratches, filming the result. Top right, the kitchen corner. Thursday night. Richard leaning in with a story he did not need to tell. Chloe rising to meet the attention. The kiss that was less heat than agreement. Bottom left. The landing camera above my head. Tonight. Me at the banister. Still as a metronome. One hand on wood. Feet planted. Bottom right. The wide shot from the bookshelf. Chloe at the last 3 steps. Phone angled. The practice twist. The deliberate miss of the rail. The fall she chose. No contact. No push. Just gravity and intention. The 4 frames ran in quiet harmony. Truth layered like glass. Richard took half a step back and sat without meaning to. His face remembered every explanation he'd rehearsed and found none left to wear. Chloe stared at the screen as if it had betrayed her personally. "You can't. This is illegal," she said, grabbing at the only script left. "What's illegal," I said, "is manufacturing injuries, recording us without consent, and attempting to extort occupancy with a staged fall." I kept my eyes on the proof, not on her. This house records what it needs to keep itself safe. She pushed herself upright, outrage shaking the air and landing nowhere. "I'm calling a lawyer." "Do," I said. "I already emailed mine." I picked up my phone and dialed. When the dispatcher answered, my voice was the voice I use for provenance reports and wire transfers. "Yes, I'd like to report fraud and trespass at my residence," I said. "Staged injury, attempted extortion. The subject is conscious, not in danger. We have time-stamped video. Please send officers." Richard covered his eyes with one hand, a man realizing the cost of being seen. "Eleanor," he began. "We will talk later," I said, gentle and finished. "After the truth is documented." Chloe tried one last pivot. Tears, the soft angle of a victim rehearsed. On the TV, the 4 panes kept telling the same story from 4 honest directions. There is a moment when a performance dies of exposure. We had reached it. I ended the call and set the phone beside the remote. "Chloe," I said, "wait on the sofa until the officers arrive. Do not touch your phone again." She hesitated, then obeyed. Not because she respected me, but because the room no longer bent to her. I stood by the TV and looked at the life she had tried to occupy. My life. "You planned a dangerous theft," I said, more to myself than to her. "You came for everything." In my head, the closing line wrote itself with the clean satisfaction of a ledger balancing. "But you forgot who writes the script in this house." I turned the screen dark and let the silence hold the verdict. When the knock came, I exhaled once, slow. The story had been hers for a week. It was mine again now. Tables turned.